That's beautiful. Okay, well, I'll start for a minute, and then we'll call up some of our legislators. Hello to the press. Oh, well, Kyle, you're here today. That's big. That's big. Got some cameras. That's good. Oh, yeah, did you guys hear about this? I got to show this to you. Look at this. Look at this award that I won. I'm going to take a picture. You see this? We were all wondering about this for a long time. People were speculating. I'm going to show the members over here. Look at this. This is beautiful. So this is a really nice one. I know for a long time people were speculating on this, who would win the Midwesterners Newsmaker of the Year award for 2025. We all know who won the Crain's Newsmaker award, which was me. But people were really speculating who would win the Midwesterners Newsmaker of the Year award, and that was me. I won it, so I'm very proud of that. So I'll set it back. Hopefully you can see that. But no, that was a tough one because people know. I mean, you look kind of what Crain says, you look to what the Midwesterner says, and you can forge a consensus of the Newsmaker of the Year. And I think we finally have established that for 2025, who the Newsmaker of the Year was, now that the Midwesterner has put this out. And, I read in the story that it was unanimous. It was a unanimous vote of the Newsmaker of the Year. And that's pretty hard to do. I mean, the Midwesterner has a very diverse newsroom, people of very strong opinions. And to get a unanimous vote like that, I was just very flattered. And so I asked him, I said, why did you pick me for Newsmaker of the Year in 2025 to the Midwesterner? And they said, well, you delivered no tax on tip, overtime, and Social Security. You made the budget smaller than it was the year before, and that's the first time that's ever been done other than like Great Depressions and wartime. We made the budget smaller than the year before. You got a roads deal done. You put $2 billion a year permanently into roads without permanently by setting better priorities. And they said, we couldn't believe that you cut $800 million of waste, fraud, and abuse in the budget. We saw no new corporate welfare programs in the year. So there were a lot of reasons, a lot of factors that went into it. So I'm really appreciative of the award. We saved Medicaid. That was big for the Midwesterner. That never would have happened without me if we and Greg Van Workum, had we not just said, look, stop complaining, Democrats, and let's learn about the One Big Beautiful Bill, or HR 1 as they call it, and let's just figure out how states can get all of their Medicaid funding under the new law. And so we made a very simple change. We put it in Greg Van Workum's bill. We got it out of the House. Then we got the Democrats to agree to it. And we have all of our Medicaid funding. That was a big deal as we go through that. So that was a very good that was a very good outcome last year. So I appreciate the, and then also they talked about, I went to the White House with President Trump, and I think I really stepped up in that moment and conveyed what we needed to do for Selfridge Air National Guard Base, and also for the Asian carp. We got to keep those Asian carp out of the Great Lakes. And so President Trump responded and said, hey, you know what, I'll work with you and Governor Whitmer on that. And I'm not sure, I don't know if Governor was in the state enough days to qualify for the Newsmaker of the Year award. So that's a factor they take in, is whether, how many days are you in the state? And so I don't know what the Midwesterners' criteria is there, but I met it, and so I was very proud to win the Midwesterners Newsmaker of the Year. When coupled with the Crain's Newsmaker of the Year, really, I think we've set the story straight once and for all, who was the Newsmaker of the Year in 2025. I was going to invite up some of our legislators. Do you guys want to come up for a moment? We're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about 2026. Now that 2025 is settled and we know the Newsmaker of the Year, you guys want to come up? Some of our members, you want to? Yeah, so we just wanted to talk a little bit about the future. We've been working as a team with Tom Kuhn and Joe Aragona and Alicia St. Germain and Ron Robinson and Jamie Green and many others. We've been working to look at the future. Now, I'm going to get into this in a minute. I won't make you guys stand up here during this, but in a minute, I'm going to get into the work projects. I've gone through the work projects. I know what's been cut and what has not been cut, and I'll go through that in a moment, okay? But I know what's been cut and I know what's not been cut. And so I've looked through the list, all right? So I know everything that is under preliminary injunction and everything they shoved out the door. And so looking at this, what's become very clear to me is as we move forward with this supplemental, we do not need to include any of this stuff that was cut from the work projects in the supplemental. And I'll get into that in a little bit, all right? But just to lay this out for now, what we want to do this week is we want to move ahead with a supplemental that we're going to move through the House this week that funds a new runway, 2 new runways for the Selfridge Air National Guard Base. We're going to put through a supplemental that funds it at $152 million for the runways. This is something that I've been talking with the President and his team about. I've been talking to the Air Force Secretary about as well, that really in order to meet the aggressive timeline that Governor Whitmer and the President and I have been talking about of getting these 21 new fighter jets in place before President Trump leaves office. So to do this in 2028, we can't rely on the federal government to pay for these runways because you see the federal government, first of all, I think they're still partially shut down, aren't they? Yes, I mean, they're still partially shut down? Yeah, so to rely on the federal government to fund these runways and get these under construction on the timeline that we need to get this fighter mission in place in 2028, which is all of our goal, to work on this accelerated timeline that Governor Whitmer has really been leading on with me and the President. The state of Michigan is going to have to step up, and we're going to have to pay for these runways, for the construction of these runways. Now, I believe that we're going to have to do this before spring break in order to get the funding in place and in order to show the commitment to President Trump and the Air Force that is needed in order to guarantee that we can get these fighter planes in 2028, which I think is really important to get them before President Trump leaves office. And the reason for that is we know that President Trump, the governor and I, we met with the president in the Oval Office. We asked him to get us a new fighter mission. We all know that President Trump came back to Selfridge with myself and Leader Nesbitt and the governor and made that commitment. We're going to get that new fighter mission. We know we're going to get those 21 planes. The question is, what happens in the future? We want to build that momentum, we want to stick with that momentum, and we want to ensure that this happens while President Trump is still there so that he can ensure that we truly get this fighter mission. So in order to do that, we have to do it on an accelerated timeline. I think the Air Force was planning on this happening in 29 and 30. If we're going to move this up to 28, then we've got to pay for that runway, and we've got to get that guaranteed quickly, because the state, we can move much faster than the federal government. So I would still expect the federal government to build out the rest of the site, including the hangars and things like that. But I hope we can, we heard the governor talk about this in her State of the State last week. And by the way, did you see her mention me in the State of the State? The best sick leave policy that we came up with together, and I got the high five. Now, I will tell you, I could see her teleprompter, so I knew what she was going to say. So I had a little bit of a jump on other people. But, I mean, when I saw her talk about that paid sick leave policy, when we made that deal, and that's another reason I was a Newsmaker of the Year. We made that deal. Do you remember how quick we made that deal? We made that deal in like 30 days to save paid sick leave in our state. And to ensure people had a job. So of course I was going to give the governor a high five for that. And then did you see her mention me about the roads? And we never would have got that roads deal done if it weren't for me and a committed Republican caucus that she said had the guts and the brains to put a plan on the table and move it through our chamber. And it looked to me like Brinks just looked a lot less enthusiastic up there about the sick leave and the roads plan. And one more thing, too. Did you guys notice the Democrats didn't stand up when she said she signed the cell phone bill? Now, I stood up. The Republicans stood up. The Democrats didn't stand up for that, but Mark Tisdale did a great job on that. So as we're going through these things, we also heard the governor talk about Selfridge, and she gave President Trump credit for that, rightfully so. If it were not for President Trump, we never would have been in this position. I mean, we know that the military bureaucracy did not want this. When the governor and I went to meet with President Trump and him and the Secretary of War, Hegseth, I mean, they cut through the bureaucracy. They found us the planes. They came back to give us the commitment on the mission. Now we have to do our part to get this done while President Trump's still in office. So we're going to be moving on this supplemental this week. I believe Ron Robinson is the one who's going to introduce it. And my hope is that we can get this $152 million through the legislature and to the governor's desk by spring break so we can meet this timeline to get these planes and begin this construction on the runways this year. We can't wait on the federal bureaucracy to get this done. We can't wait on the Congress to get this done. This is the most time-sensitive issue, and we got to get it done on this timeline. And so I'm very pleased that our members are fully supportive of this. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything, or go ahead, Ron. Why don't you say something?
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Hall. Yeah, I just want to take a minute. This is very exciting, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about what makes Speaker Hall special. Most times we get the Selfridge mission, and that would be that, but he had the due diligence to stick with this, and I want to thank him and also Senator Nesbitt and before, when you're talking about my predecessors, when you're talking about Candace Miller and people like Anthony Forlini, who kept this base open. So it's an exciting time for Selfridge. It's an exciting time for Macomb County. It's going to affect the whole state in a positive way. So I could not be more proud of this piece that we're going to push forward. And again, it's the work that Speaker Hall is doing that's getting this done behind the scenes. So thank you very much, Speaker Hall.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Ron.
you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, of course. Anyone else? Or you guys? You good? Okay. You're good. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me and acknowledging that Selfridge is in my district. One thing to note is the support from the community where I live is just overwhelming. And, we want this. Those jets fly over our houses. They're loud. And we say from District 62, bring it on. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I just want to mention, just to echo, I think you see the reps up here in support because of how big of a deal this is to Macomb County. Selfridge and the Defense Corridor is looked at at about $1 billion in economic impact for Macomb, right? So if Selfridge were to fall, how many other businesses, both large and small, would kind of be in jeopardy. So the fact that, Mr. Speaker, you're putting this much emphasis on this to make sure that we have this fighter mission at Selfridge and that we keep Selfridge, it's extremely important, and we really, really are grateful. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that, Joe. You're great. So yeah, this is, we've been having conversations, like I said, with the Trump administration and the Air Force Secretary, and this is what we're going to have to do in order to get it done on time, on the deadline that we've asked for. And my hope is that the Democrats won't try to make this a partisan issue or try to throw a bunch of pork in the budget. We've got to do this, and we've got to do it fast to meet this aggressive timeline set by our conversations with the president and the governor. So we're going to move ahead with that. So appreciate everyone and your work on that. It's a great group. So you don't have to stand up here if you don't want to, because you may not endorse everything I say after this. Oh, you might. Well, we know Tom will, but all right. I feel bad. These guys stand up here for an hour, hour and 15. And so you guys, you're welcome to be here or whatever, or to go, but thank you. We're going to get that done, and we're going to move it this week, and my hope is the Senate will move quickly, because we're really going to have to do this before the end of spring break to meet the timeline. Now I do, I really take pride in educating the media to help you guys be more accurate in your reporting. And so we're going to do that now. I just want to talk through the, I don't know how to use this, but I have look at this. Oh, did you guys see this? This is what we're educating you guys on. No, I'm just kidding. That was beautiful, Travers. Oh, look at this. We all remember this day, and we're going to make another day like this in 2028. All right. Now I want to go through the work project. So I have a full accounting. I know exactly what was encumbered, what was not encumbered, what's under preliminary injunction, what's not. And with that information, that's where I come to this conclusion that we don't need to fund any of this stuff in a supplemental. We can just move forward with Selfridge clean. We don't need to fund any of this stuff because most of the things that the media was reporting on were not cut. Most of these things are proceeding as the governor wanted it to. If you look at that $369 million and what was cut, I guess I'll start with what was not cut. These are some examples of the things. Is the Midwesterner Award in the way? So I can move the Midwesterner Award a little bit if you'd like me to, or can you see it over the screen? You guys can see it. Okay, good. Well, maybe it'll get in the shots on TV. So I just want to lay this out. These are examples of what was not cut. So all of the earmarks, all of the pork spending, a lot of the things the press was talking about, I would say 99% of those were not cut. So those are proceeding as planned. These are some examples of ones the media talked about. Holocaust Museum, Potter Park Zoo, the City of Jackson, Hamtramck Fire Department, the Hillsdale Community Health Center. These are all examples of ones that were not cut, but I'm just going to tell you the number of the pork projects that were cut was probably 5 on the regular pork, and then maybe another 5 on the DHHS pork. And so I went through that and said, look, if you've gone more than a year, because they went more than a year, and you didn't even get any of it under contract, we don't need to fund this. Because the definition they use with this preliminary injunction is a much more, generous interpretation. So, I mean, literally, if you have something under contract, you got the funding. So the stuff that was cut, like I said, it was about 5 projects on the regular pork side, and then maybe another 5 projects on the DHHS side. Because the DHHS pork, they mask it, but it's pork. And they won't mask it anymore because heat is the law now. But anyway, you see this, 99% of the projects that look like this are proceeding as planned. The Taylor Historical Center, Some of you wrote about the James DeSanta. All of that is moving forward. None of that was cut. What was not cut, and I will tell you as I go through the spreadsheets that I went through, there's a lot of little things like 50,000 here, 100,000 here. I didn't get into that. I think you can get a pretty good picture. So if you look at what was cut, the 369 million, mostly departmental spending, okay? Now there's another slide here after this that has two more departments that are the bigger departments. So that I'll get into that next. We just had to fit it all on a couple slides. But just to work through this, largely what was cut was department spending. Okay, I would say half of it roughly is department spending. So you guys were focused on the pork projects. I think we got to take a step back. These are largely departmental items that they just didn't, they probably over budgeted and they didn't spend the money by the end of the year. And those are the kind of things that we've been talking about cutting from a budget, all right? So you can see some of these departments, 5 million from natural resources, 12 million from MDOT, 17 million from Eagle, 2 million from corrections, and I didn't break it out on here, but there's just a bunch of these very, there's say a dozen line items under every one of these that are small programs that they just didn't spend all the money. This is what we're clawing back. Now I'll note that the RX Kids funding is part of it. It's cut because they were given 20 million and they didn't spend. This says 17, but it's more like 18 million that they didn't need the money. Then they got another $270 million last year in the budget. So they didn't need this money. It's clawed back. I'll go to the next one. So these are the two bigger departments, and what I would describe is about half of this money was from departments, about half of this money was from the Make It in Michigan Fund, all right? And we all know the Make It in Michigan Fund was this program that Governor Whitmer cooked up to collaborate with President Biden on a lot of his wacky left-wing causes. So they wanted to do this to force, more electric batteries, more hydrogen batteries, a lot of these alternative energy things. And this was to draw down matching funds for the signature Biden legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act. We blocked that and we stopped those projects that were, that are now on hold. So that's 159 million of this 369 million, so that kind of gives you a picture. But you look at this. This is how it looks on the spreadsheet. There were these three items in DTMB. This is exactly how it looks. 159 million, Make It in Michigan Fund, 27 million in IT programs, and 1 million in tampons. Okay, this is what we cut from DTMB, simple as that. And we all know where those tampons were supposed to go. But $1 million is a lot, that's a lot of tampons, so we cut those and they're not gonna be in the boys' bathrooms anymore. There's a lot of them now, cause they got quite a bit. I think they still got like 900,000 of tampons, but they didn't get the full 1.9 through the door in that year. Now with Lara, you look at this, this says 56, but I think it's 55 million in Indigent Defense Commission grants, 5 million in renewable energy grants, and 3 million in federal energy grants. And this is exactly, they might add a couple more complicated words, but this is exactly how it looks on the spreadsheet for Lara. So, we look at that, right? They put that money in and they didn't spend it on the indigent defense grants. They didn't spend any of it. It's just sitting there, the 55 million. And that's why when we went through the next year's budget, we tried to shrink that number because they're sitting on this huge backlog of funding for the indigent defense grants. They're not spending them. And then my guess is, I didn't see in the new budget report, did they ask for more, Tom? Do you know? No, you don't know? Yeah, my guess is they asked for more. And we just look at this and say, I mean, you didn't spend any of it. And even when you guys knew that we were clawing us back, you didn't try to rush this stuff out the door. This is clearly more money than they need, all right? And so as you're going through these budgets and you're saying, should we spend $56 million on indigent defense grants next year? Well, I think they're going to have to come in and explain to us, why is there 56, this says $56 million of this that you're not spending any of it. And that's the whole point. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to take this money and they were trying to lock it into a slush fund so they could keep it. And now Governor Whitmer is proposing raising taxes because we have a budget shortfall. And we're saying, look, we can take this $56 million in these unused grants, and we can use it as part of the conversation this year. We can take the $159 million in these failed green energy projects that from the Biden administration, and we can use that to address our budget shortfall. We can take the $27 million in IT investments that are failed; they're not even using it. Rather than squirrel that away and account for 5 years or more, we can spend it now to help with our budget shortfall. So I don't know, is that the last one on that? All right, so yeah, just as I look through it, I can just kind of go through and summarize it that way. About half the money was the Make It in Michigan fund. About the rest of it was largely departments. And the bigger pieces were the indigent defense grants, the stuff we highlighted here, RX Kids, IT. So that's largely what got cut. And a lot of the stuff that you guys were writing about didn't get cut. So as we're, I think as we're moving forward, it's really, are we going to just let these departments spend $369 million on departmental stuff and Biden-era program matching funds? And, we're not going to do that. So we're going to keep the money, and we're going to use it for the budget next year. I think it's really needed. We have a $800 million budget hole. And we could use this $369 million to not have to make as drastic cuts, or we could let the Whitmer administration keep it in accounts and add it to the other $10 billion they're keeping, and they're making $600 million a year on interest from these accounts on the taxpayers. So they're overtaxing you, and they're making $600 million a year on interest from you, the taxpayer. And now they're saying we want to raise your taxes. I don't think that makes much sense. Just looking through some of the things that we had talked about before, we blocked all of the EV chargers. They want those EV chargers all over the Lake Michigan Lake Shore. We cut that. We cut funding for the welfare for illegal aliens through the Office of Global Michigan. We stopped their $1 million for the baseball stadium in Lansing. That was one of their pork project priorities. We blocked that. We blocked the Detroit Public Radio, what they were trying to shove in there for them. So we blocked a lot of good things that were waste and fraud and abuse. And we're going to use it for better things. I guess I'll just move this back to where it should be. How about that? So anyway, I hope everyone takes that information and reports accordingly. Now, I'm working off of this, and I don't usually do that, so I'm probably just going to get rid of this. It's throwing me off. So we worked through that. I just say on the, I hear a lot of the lobbyists are coming out against our property tax cut. You know, that's, I understand that. You know, we're going to tax the lobbyists, by the way, under our plan. We're going to tax them, and they're going to pay a tax. 6% tax the lobbyists are going to pay. We're going to tax all the lobbyists. So I understand why they're mad, but we're going to tax them, and we're going to tax the political consultants, and we're going to tax the political ads, and many other things. And we're going to lower your property taxes considerably. We're going to cut your property taxes by $900 a year on average. And we're going to force the utilities to cut their rates by $1 billion. And that's going to save the average person $250 a year. And we're going to force them to keep them there for a while. You know, it's ridiculous what you're seeing with these increased rates. I saw DTE, they raised their rates, they got approved, and then a couple days later, they asked to raise their rates again. That's going to stop. We're going to force them to lower their rates by $1 billion. We're going to get rid of the real estate transfer tax, which adds $2,000 or $3,000 to every transaction and closing costs. We're also going to get rid of the pop-up tax. You know, you hear so many stories of people who are struggling, and they want to get a smaller home. You know, maybe they've lived in the home for many years and they don't need that home anymore. They need a smaller home. And if they sell their home, their property taxes double or triple. We're going to stop that too. So we are going to do huge things for affordability of people's homes and for selling their homes and buying new homes. And really making it so people can live in their homes. You know, you look at the property tax, you could own your home outright, and yet the property tax, you could lose your home if you don't pay it. And so getting rid of the state property tax is going to go a long way for helping people with their cost of housing. I also applaud Joe Aragona for what he's doing. You know, you heard the governor give him a shout out during the speech about the great work he's doing on some of these out of control local governments that are coming up with all of these zoning things, that they come up with all these zoning regulations that increase the cost of housing. You know, you can't build houses that people want to live in because these local governments are creating all these regulations and zoning that make it impossible. And so the only houses you can buy are ones that are unaffordable. So we're working with Joe Aragona. You saw that I moved those bills to the Government Operations Committee. That way they can move very quickly if needed. They'll be in the Government Operations Committee. And I think it's a good thing. So you look at what we're doing by eliminating the state property tax, getting rid of the real estate transfer tax, ending the pop-up tax, and getting rid of the personal property tax, and forcing the utilities to lower their rates by $1 billion. You know, the average Michigander is going to save probably, what, $1,100 a year from this plan. And then we're going to go and we're going to look at these ridiculous regulations that are driving up the cost of housing as well. So there's a big things on the horizon on housing, cost of housing that we're doing. I'm very excited about it. So we've got some good things going on there on affordability, on housing. We're going to tax those lobbyists to pay for it too. The lobbyists are going to pay to cut your property taxes, and so are the political consultants, and you know, a lot of the others I talked about. I mean, these people and their limousines and their country club memberships and the private jets, those are all going to be taxed. We're going to tax the marinas. We're going to tax a lot of these things that are very unpopular, but we're going to lower your property taxes. You're going to save over $1,100 a year, and but the lobbyists don't like it because we're going to tax them, and I understand. But you know, the lobbyists have been making record profits, and every year the lobbyists make record profits. The lobbyists are spending more and more on lobbying every year, and they're gonna pay this tax, and I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm just looking through all these notes. I don't know. I had a bunch of other stuff, but they're not up here, so I'll take questions. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
That breakdown you did of the disapproved items, did you have that at the time that put it up to a vote? Or I guess in appropriations?
No, like I said, and I've talked about this a few times here. So the Whitmer administration presented us the documents they presented us, which all of you saw, which were months old, right? And so we get a report from them. When do we get it? Do you guys remember? And that was the information they provided us. So it's 2 or 3 months before the vote. They give you these are the items. And so we're looking through that and we're saying, okay, based on what we can tell, a lot of these things are not being used. They're not being spent. And what they do under this law is they give you this during the hunting break, and they say you have how many days to disapprove it? Say you have 10 days to disapprove it. And we say, okay, well, tell us where we're at. Tell us what's been spent. And they say, no, just approve it, right? And then I get criticized by the media who's saying, why are you doing your job? Why are you scrutinizing every dollar in the budget? And I mean, you know this. So for months after we disapproved their work projects, which remember is they were trying to put hundreds of millions of dollars into their slush funds, and they're daring us. They're saying, well, we're not going to tell you exactly what we're cutting, so you won't cut it. And we said, no, we're going to cut it, and then if there are things in there that are justified, then you come back and you tell us what they are. And I think that's our job as stewards of the taxpayers' money. You know, we want to know how every dollar is going to be spent. So you fast forward to the hearing we had with the court. I mean, the court asked them, and they couldn't answer the question. Do you remember? One of them said, well, I think 700 million of it, or no, what was it? 70% of it is encumbered. Do you guys remember that? They had no idea what was encumbered. And so we get this back. Now we know. But it took them until last week to know what was cut. And I'm just saying, when they come to me and they're trying to shove $600+ million into their $10 billion slush fund and ask for tax increases, we're saying, let's slow this down. And you come back, we're going to cut it, and you guys come back and you tell us, is any of this justified? What is it? So again, I would put that on the administration, that why is it takes until end of February for them to be able to tell us what they spent? And we had to make this decision in November, as you guys know, November, December. So I think it was a good outcome, right? Which is, where we are is we're holding up some of these items, most of which is waste, fraud, and abuse. And we can, we'll still have to deal with the courts, but hopefully we can work a deal where we find a better use for this money. And my hope is in the future, the Whitmer administration will do a much better job, or the next administration, because they'll be gone, will do a much better job of accounting for this money. They should have a better handle. How much was spent? How much are you asking us for? Why does it need to be delayed more than 1 year? And when will it be complete? And show it to us, If they would have had their ducks in order, we could have been more surgical in how some of the cuts went. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
The Selfridge commander said last month that they needed about $1 billion in infrastructure improvements over the next 5 to 7 years to prepare for that fire mission. So are you guys trying to shorten that? She was under the understanding that the time frame was 5 to 7 years. You guys are saying it's 2 years now?
Yeah, so the goal is to get these 21 these fighter jets by the end of Trump's presidency in 2028. And in order to meet that timeline, we're going to have to fund the runway.
Is the base commander not aware of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, base commander's aware.
Why'd you say that?
You're probably quoting it in a manner that is not as complete as the manner I'm quoting it in. So, in order to get the fighter missions, we've got to fund the runway, which is $152 million. Under the original plan, they were going to fund the runway. But we've asked for this more accelerated timeline, and the president's agreed to it. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get that $152 million. And then the rest of what you're talking about, we're going to have to count on the federal government to do through the federal, through Congress and through their process. And a lot of that is for the hangars, a lot of the work at the hangars and other upgrades. But in order to meet the timeline, the most sensitive part, the part that has to get done first, is the runway. And if we wait on the federal government to do it, we won't meet the timeline. So that's what we're doing. I'm sure what you're quoting is, it all syncs up if you were to ask some more questions of them. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, so Speaker, I just want to make sure I understand the police fraud abuse number that you had up there.
Yeah.
How much of that number is from the work projects that you guys denied last year? About half of it, maybe?
What do you mean?
So that was all waste fraud abuse?
This?
360?
That's what, this is all work projects.
Sorry?
Yeah, all this is, so the 369 is what is currently under preliminary injunction for the work projects.
Okay.
And so remember, the original number was 600 some million.
Okay, so that is all work projects.
Yeah, there's a little bit for Department of Education on here, and then some very small things that are, you know, I was trying to summarize it for you guys on the chart. Yeah, so essentially, this is, what I attempted to do with this slide was to break down 95% of what was cut. And I was just trying to give it to you in the most digestible way that I could, because the way this shows up is like MAGCB application portal continuation, and then there's like 6 of those. And so I'm just trying to give you big picture. It's largely cuts from departments for small programs in the department. That's about half of it. The other half is a Make It in Michigan fund, which was that Biden era matching program for like the Inflation Reduction Act. So a lot of that is corporate giveaways for alternative energy programs. You see the IT investments. I mean, that 27 million in IT investments is bigger than a lot of these departments. You know, you look at the indigent defense grants, 56 million. You could start putting a bunch of these departments together, and it's bigger than that. So that's what I'm trying to get across, is if you were to summarize it, it's largely Make It in Michigan, the indigent defense grants, IT, RX Kids, bunch, you know, departments, and then there were some opioid settlement funds in there too that hadn't been spent yet. So, you know, those are the big pieces, and then you go from there. So the flavor I'm trying to give you, these are largely department cuts. These are largely department spends that were not spent at the end of the year. This is not the pork projects. The media focused on the pork projects. What we found is that all of that went out the window, and they never should have even asked us for work project designation for it. That was just their sloppy bookkeeping. You know, there's, I think, roughly five pork projects. One was the Lansing Lugnuts Stadium, $1 million upgrade that got cut. And then there's about 5 in the DHHS area that they are pork projects, but they're fake. Like, what they would do in DHHS is they would do pork projects, but they make it look like they're not pork projects. So there's about 10 pork projects total. As you go through that and learn more, you'll see it wasn't what it was reported, but I do think the 369 is important because it's going to allow us to bring that forward to the budget conversation. I was kind of waiting on this outcome to kind of decide what our supplemental was going to be. So now that I understand this is largely waste in departments and to make it in Michigan fund, you can have that conversation on the regular budget timeline, okay? What you cannot talk about on the regular budget timeline is the Selfridge proposal, because we've got to get that done earlier. So that's why this week we're going to move ahead with the supplemental on the Selfridge base, because that is actually time sensitive. We got to try to get that done by spring break. The rest of it can wait for the regular budget. You know, they've got a lot in their slush funds already. They'll be fine. Yeah, go ahead, Remington.
So the Standing Committee on Elections met today.
Oh, great.
To talk about bills to change how voter registration is done, to make sure that people are citizens.
Yep.
The Michigan Democratic Party calls it voter suppression. In your eyes, what is it?
Yeah, that's an absurd statement. You know, remember when, by the way, when they did their ballot proposal and in order to get people to support it, the Democrats lied and said it was a voter ID to vote, and then everyone found out it wasn't. And actually you don't need a voter ID to vote. So the Democrats will use it to deceive voters to get Democrat proposals through the ballot, but when really we have a vote before us to require voter ID to vote, the Democrats oppose it. But no, voter ID is really critical. You know, I think it will help restore people's trust in elections. Our voter rolls are just filled with dead people, people that moved out of state, all kinds of people that should not be on our voter rolls. When you have all these inactive voters on our voter file, it leaves it very open for people to commit fraud. You know, somebody that hasn't voted in 20 years or 50 years, they're probably on that list. And somebody can go and commit fraud easier as long as these people are on the list. So we got to clean up our voter rolls, and we have to require ID to vote. And I think it can be resolved very easily by seeing their ID, verifying it's them, and having them vote. And most people agree with that. Most Democrats agree, all Republicans, and most independents agree. What's the big deal? Voter ID to vote. I mean, there's many things where you need to show your ID to verify it's you. But when it's elections, for some reason that's a problem. I don't know why it's a problem. And, you know, with the way they do same-day registration now, you know, there's a lot of ways to clear up any mistakes. But largely, you know, we've got to clean up these rolls. And, you know, we're supporting the lawsuit and filing a brief to get Michigan's voter rolls turned over to the federal government, so the federal government can help us clean those rolls. We want to clean the voter rolls. We want to take the dead people off. We want to take the people who've moved out of state off, the illegal aliens off. But the Democrats fight us tooth and nail, and they want those people on the voter rolls, and they don't want you to show an ID to vote. And so I think we all have to ask ourselves, why is that? Yeah, go ahead.
I did sit into that hearing today as well. I sat in a few of the early citizen-only voting outreach sessions for the ballot.
Was it a board of canvassers, or what was the meeting?
No, this was the hearing.
On the elections committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that I've noticed over the period of this is that there seems to be a big discrepancy in explaining this, that there's now a federal requirement for real ID. So if that federal requirement for real ID is a thing, we should adopt that here and make sure that that is the law of land. But the big difference is that real ID is different than enhanced ID. Enhanced ID will show that you are a citizen. I have it in my pocket. Real ID won't. But I think one of the things that's confusing in some of the argument is there's no delineation of saying we're going to accept enhanced ID only because we can see that you're a citizen. Does there need to be some reworking of how you guys sell this, knowing that there is that big discrepancy between a real ID and enhanced ID, so that people understand that?
And this is the people doing the ballot proposal that are saying this?
And also, Jason Wolford,
Oh, yeah.
Representative Wolford mentioned that today, but I think that there was some confusion about what could actually be used in a form of ID to show that you're a citizen. Real ID won't show that. Enhanced ID will. So my question for you is, that you
Yeah.
guys kind of need to go back to the drawing board and messaging to rework that.
Right.
To make sure that is what you guys are talking
Is there a bill or something that's in the committee, or was it just a hearing?
about.
What does the bill do?
It's essentially to implement this, implement
Oh, I see. Okay. And whose bill is it, do you know?
Wolford's.
Wolford? Okay. Yeah, so I didn't see the hearing, but, you know, I think, again, we want we want voter ID to vote. That's what we want, and we want citizens voting, and we want to clean up the voter rolls. That's what we want. I think the public wants that, and I'm sure the committee will work through some of the things you've laid out. So appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead.
Last week, the House meeting was supposed to appear in the Court of Claims. Judge Little put off arguments saying that he felt like both sides were close to an agreement out of court. What is the House Republicans were looking for in an agreement?
Well, I've said all along that we're trying to make a deal here. I mean, we cut the work project funding. Then when we cut the work project funding, we said to the Whitmer administration, since your accounting is all screwed up, come to us, tell us what you need, and justify it. And then we'll make a deal. And I always said we would fund the things that make sense, and we would not fund the things that are waste, fraud, and abuse. And I didn't expect that to take until end of February for them to be able to tell us what was spent. That in itself is something that you guys should criticize them for. But we did get it, and now I have it. And so now I think the conversation is what I always said, which is, you know, we can work this out. So we're going to see what we can do to work it out with the administration, and then we'll brief the court on that.
Well, given that this was an argument about somewhat the constitutionality of the law itself, though, what happens from there if this gets solved out of court?
Well, I think we got to work through that in the conversation. And so I've always pointed out my goal was to make a deal. You know, I think what Sarah Anthony did by asking for the Attorney General opinion is something that she will see was not very smart. You know, essentially what Sarah Anthony did was she, to protect department spending and you know, the Biden era Make It in Michigan fund, she basically took her own power away. And so that wasn't very smart, and it's really prolonged this whole thing, and it's made the negotiation more complicated, but we'll work through it. We'll come up with it. Hopefully we'll get a good resolution, and if we don't, then we'll go back to court, where I think we'll win very easily in court. Go ahead, Elena.
So as we were coming into this year and talking about supplemental,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about importance of supplemental process.
Right.
What is the deal with that as it relates to the Selfridge? Why would that happen?
Yeah, so that would not be pork spending because it's going to the National Guard base. So heat would apply to the pork spending, but heat doesn't apply.
Not a legislative direct spending. I don't think, I guess.
Yeah, you'd have to look at heat. I'm an expert in the law, heat. It's called the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. And so if you look at what it applies to nonprofits, it applies to, but it doesn't apply to departments of state government. You follow that? So if you're, you know, it's an Air National Guard base, right? It's not a nonprofit. So it wouldn't apply to that. Just like if the governor said, you know, I need $10 million for my office. That wouldn't go through heat. That wouldn't be a pork project. That's to a department of government for it. You know what I'm saying? It's to the governor's office or to the legislature. If I had to fix the roof on my building and they sent me $10 million to fix the roof, that wouldn't be a pork project. That would be like a capital government expenditure for a department of government. And this is part of the Veterans Department. It's an Air National Guard base. So I asked the same question, and I looked at it. And so that, you know, as we're working through heat, the purpose was not to force transfer normal department budgets to be subjected to a 45-day wait period. It's those projects that are to the covered entities, like the nonprofits and the local governments, which are separate entities in the state. Go ahead, Simon.
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. defense budget is north of $950 million.
Right.
Why is it worthwhile to instead allocate $152 million to Michigan taxpayer money on a year where we're already seeing sort of revenue is declining, potential budgetary shortfalls, so is this project falls into what's going to happen in 2 years?
Well, I think what's important is we got that commitment from President Trump. President Trump has proposed this new fighter mission for Michigan. And I think the best thing we can do to ensure that it's going to happen is make sure it happens while President Trump is president. The conversations that I've had with the Secretary of the Air Force, that's the commitment I'm willing to make, we're going to get you this runway to meet the timeline if you can do your job to meet the timeline that the president set. And one of the biggest delays was the runway construction. And if we're going to wait on the federal government to fund the runway, then we're not going to get this thing done on time. And so what I believe we risk is under a new president going back to what we had under Biden, which is we're just going to let the lower level people direct this, and they don't want this in Michigan. So in order to guarantee it is in Michigan, I think we've got to make this timeline, and I'm supporting the timeline that the governor has been pushing. I'm supporting her, and I've been working directly with the Secretary of the Air Force to figure out what we need to do, and we know this spending is going to start in the legislature. What do we need to do to meet the timeline? And so that's what we're going to have to do. We've asked for an accelerated timeline, and in order to meet that timeline, we're going to have to fund the runway. And I hope that the legislative Democrats will support our efforts to get that runway funded, and then we can meet the timeline. But we're still going to require, the federal government is going to have to perform on the rest of the deal. And I know our U.S. Senators, Peters and Slotkin, are committed to helping with that. Our congressional members, Lisa McClain, John James, and the rest of our congressional members are working on that. And the Trump administration is supportive. So they're going to get us the rest of that federal money, but it's not as time sensitive. But I think the risk is if you don't move this thing and work aggressively to meet the timeline, you could lose it. And we're talking about, you heard Joe Aragona talk about the big investments that this makes in Macomb County. It's going to keep that base open for another 30 to 40 years, so we don't want to take the risk. And I really applaud the governor for working on this and President Trump for being willing to help us meet an aggressive timeline, but we've got to put up the money for the runway, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that through the House this week, and I hope the Senate will move it quickly. We'll get that. What?
You're saying government was supporting this move?
Well, you'd have to ask her what she supports, but I know that the governor has asked for the new timeline. That's something she's been working on with President Trump, and I think we all are aware that we've been trying to get this thing done and committed, and we're working to get the funding. It's going to have to start in the House. We'll get that over to the governor or to the Senate, and let's get it on the governor's desk, and let's make that commitment official to the Air Force that we're going to do this runway, we're going to do it on the aggressive timeline, and now we need the federal funding, and we need to keep everyone moving to make this happen. So that's what we're trying to do. Go ahead, Travers.
The DOJ on Monday filed a motion for an emergency appeal in this case seeking election information
Right.
from the Secretary of State. How important do you think the DOJ's effort to vet Benson's election oversight are to ensuring a free and fair election in 2026?
Yeah, well, we're supportive of the lawsuit. We're filing an amicus brief in the appeal that's going on. It was too bad this first judge didn't get it right, but I think this appeals court will get it right. And yeah, we want clean election rolls. You know, I was at the White House a couple weeks ago, and I can tell you firsthand, they're finding so many dead people and people that have moved out of state and illegal aliens on these databases, on these rolls, when they work with the federal government and they look and they share information. And don't we want dead people and illegal aliens and people that have moved out of state off our voter rolls? I mean, we all should want clean, accurate voter rolls that we can have confidence in. So I think ultimately Benson will lose the case. But it's a shame it has to be such a fight, because everyone should share that goal of wanting to have clean voter rolls. Yeah, go ahead, Eggert.
Just to clarify on Selfridge issue, the governor who was, I guess, going with the Trump administration to say we want to go their timeline, we'll give you, we'll pay for this.
Well, I think the governor, that's one of the things the governor and President Trump and I have been, you know, we've had those conversations. And I've had conversations directly with the Secretary of the Air Force about how we can do this, and, you know, working closely with Lisa McClain and other members of Congress. You know, this is what we've been working toward, is getting, we got the commitment. Now we got to work through all the details to make sure the commitment happens. And and this is the most time-sensitive part of getting that done. And so my plan is to get this through the House this week. I hope the Senate will act on it very soon, and we'll get this off to the governor, and she can sign it and make that commitment to President Trump. This is really giving her what she needs in order to get the federal, the rest of the federal money, some of which Beth talked about. Well, I'm putting this forward, you know, but everyone is, you know, aware of what we're doing. So.
Is she on board with it?
Well, I haven't asked her if she's on board with it, but I mean, this is not a controversial position, what I'm talking about. So, yeah.
Is there anything else in that supplemental? Or is it just all?
No, that's what I'm saying. We need a clean supplemental on this topic. So I went through, you know, I went through all of the spends here, right? Because we only want one. I mean, we need one supplemental. So I went through everything they had. I was waiting for their accounting to determine if we needed to put anything else in it. And after looking at, you know, the only things that were cut were the this department waste and the Make It in Michigan fund. There's no reason to include any of that. So that's why we're moving, now that we have the accounting, we're moving swiftly with the supplemental, which will only contain the $152 million for the Selfridge runway. And then we'll get that over the Senate and hopefully get it clean to the governor so that we can get that over signed and we can start the construction. That construction has to start very soon, so that's why it really has to be done by the spring break. That's the key. This is more time sensitive, so it has to move on another track, because once you get the funding, you know, all the stuff that has to go into the construction has to happen, and then they got to get broken ground on that early, you know, within the next few months to meet the timeline.
So is this also close to the books in FY25?
What'd you say?
Is this also close to the books on fiscal year 25 then, or is this not?
It could. I mean, it's possible, but we're not. You know, we're sending over clean with just Selfridge. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Brett Thompson was paying for some to be political consultant with campaign funds, even after he was charged with domestic violence or domestic violence case. Do you have an opinion on how we can do family members for that kind of service?
I don't have an opinion on that. You know, it's not something I've done, right? But my understanding is, according to your story in Congress, there's examples where it occurs in limited circumstances. So, you know, that was what Rep. Thompson was doing, and I don't have an opinion on it.
Have you talked to her at all about this?
No, I haven't.
Do you plan to?
No. I mean, like I said, I don't have an opinion on it. I mean, you wrote about a lot of things, and I don't go up and talk to every one of them about it, you know. Maybe I should talk to some of the Democrats about what they're doing, but I don't. I got a lot of things I'm doing, like trying to deliver this fighter mission for Michigan. I can't go to every one of these people and talk to them about every story you write, or Craig, for that matter. Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of on the same line of questioning, but different case. Representative Whitsett's not seeking re-election. She's been absent for many months from the House. Would you support putting in rules to make sure that representatives show up?
So I'll just say, you know, we were disappointed. I was disappointed to hear that Karen Whitsett's not running again. You know, she's been a great advocate for Detroit, and I know she cares very much about her constituents. You know, I don't know of anyone that has a bigger heart for their constituents than Karen Whitsett, and you just go back to the pandemic and how she was personally raising money to help people in her community with their needs during that difficult time, and the gifts. I mean, she was, you know, giving away appliances that she was raising money for to people that were in a time of need, and ensuring they have food and all these things. I mean, she has a big heart, so I think it's too bad for the city of Detroit that Karen Whitsett's not running again, and I was personally hoping she would run again. You know, I don't think people will ever forget some of the sacrifices she made to ensure that a lot of really bad things didn't happen up here during the Democrat trifecta. And by the way, did you see these radical left people coming out? And they said they had a meeting in Detroit, and they said the Democrat trifecta did nothing. Did you guys see that? And Mayor Duggan, by the way, he said they've done nothing. And I was right. They did nothing. And we all know they were holding up the education budget for their radical transgender agenda, but they did nothing. And even the Progressive Party, whatever that is, came out and said the Democrat trifecta did nothing. But Karen was a really good legislator. So, you know, I know that she's said she's had some health issues, and I think she'll be back. I think we'll see her back soon, is my hope. Go ahead. Was there something over here? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Kyle.
I just have one other thing. You had some colleagues earlier today call for constitutional carry.
Oh,
Is that something that you would put on the board, bringing constitutional carry commission?
who called for it? Do you remember?
I have Hobley, the same.
Oh, wow.
Fox.
Oh, wow, Fox.
DeBoyer,
Uh-huh.
Johnson.
Well, we'll see what happens. They got to get through a committee probably, and we'll see what happens. So I think I co-sponsored it in the past, but we'll see what happens, whether we can get it through and whether we can get the votes. That's a bill that requires probably 100% of the Republicans, and you know, we'll see if it gets there. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, the services tax proposal.
Oh, yeah.
Skepticism from folks on.
Yeah, particularly the lobbyists.
Well, people in your own office, Democratic office, Republican office. What are some of the things that you need to convince folks of to do this lift in an election year?
Well, my message to the governor is we can do bigger things and bolder things this year. You know, I enjoyed her speech, but you know, she was shooting for some easier goals. I think this housing cost is so bad, the affordability of housing is so bad, and we really need to give people bold solutions. And that's why we're going for this significant property tax relief. And I know the lobbyists don't like it, but we'll work through that and we'll get a deal. I think we can get a deal, just like we got a deal last year.
Is that your message to Senate Republicans and Senate?
Yeah, I'm not aware of anyone that has a problem.
That's been
Yeah, I didn't see what he said, but we can get this thing done. We just got to get a deal. So we'll work through it. We'll cut property taxes and we'll get a deal. But we can do something bigger and bolder than what they're proposing, which are the very safe solutions. I don't want to wait for a new governor to do big things and to bring down the cost of people's property taxes and the cost of their housing. So we're going to engage in a bigger conversation, and when we get a deal, you know, we'll make a deal that we can get the votes for. So we have to go. Is session started? What do you want? I'll go with Beth. Yeah.
When do you plan to put out a breakdown of what makes up taxable incentive? Because it's pretty vague right now about how your numbers are going to tally on 4.7 billion in taxes. You guys have a document that you're working on?
Yeah, we're working. I mean, unlike everybody else up here, I'm in there, I'm looking at the lines, I'm working with House Fiscal, like I know exactly what this does. And so we're working through exactly what's in and what's not in, but where we're at now, you know, it's what I've laid out. And you're going to tax a lot of these, the lobbyists, you're going to tax the political consultants. I talked about the limousines and a lot of these other luxury services, and you can get 4.7 billion out of that. But I just say, you know, what we're really trying to do is dramatically lower people's property taxes, and it's going to be a real difference they can feel. Cost of housing is a big issue. There's a consensus on that, and these property taxes are way too high. I mean, people could really use the $900 a year on average. We're going to save them on that, and the $250 we're going to save them on their energy bills, and that's about $1,100 of money back in somebody's pocket once we get this property tax cut, and once we force the utilities to lower their rates. So this should be a good thing. The media should be happy. So you know, you guys have houses, what? Yeah. Well, I told you. I called you. I personally called you to tell you what was in it, and it's pretty comprehensive. I left the lobbyists out. That's why I came here today, to tell you the lobbyists are getting taxed, and they're going to pay this tax. Think about it. The lobbyists are going to pay the tax, and your property taxes are going to go down. That's a pretty good deal for you, because people forget, reporters have homes. Reporters pay utility bills, so you guys are going to benefit too. So, all right. Oh, Remington, you should have waited for me to get rid of the pop-up tax before you sold your house, man. All right. Well, I'll help you on the next one. All right. Thanks, guys.